It's 5:20 in the morning and we're going to Vesper Peak. We've attempted this hike before a couple months ago and we could not make it because of the snow. And it's like this, straight up.
It's maybe our last chance of the season to do Vesper before the snow returns.
ETA 2 hours 12 minutes. It's dark and eerie, and the woods are thick.
We're only about 30 minutes into the trail, but the views are already pretty amazing. And the trail is challenging almost from the very beginning. The elevation begins.
That is Vesper Peak, and that is where we're headed. We're approaching the part where we turned around last time because we were climbing up that and it was covered in snow. We didn't have snowshoes, so we played in that boulder field for a while. But today, September 24th, there's no snow. As far as we know. We'll find out.
That's where the incident occurred.
We're high up, and we're getting higher. Where are we?
I would say Mount Side would be the nearest.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, wow. Looks like people go up there. There's a bonsai tree.
Unexpectedly, there's a little frog.
A frog?
A cute little frog.
Oh, cutie.
Satellite sheep that I have personally cited that are hard this now. Like this. You're sure that's not the trail to the left? Right here.
To the right?
Look.
Oh, yeah. Why were they coming this way?
I didn't think they were coming this way.
Okay. Those grasses up there are dancing. It's been treacherous getting up here. But we're not done yet. We need to go down there and jump. This is bananas. If it were raining, we'd be dead. But it's not. And the wind is on my back. So I feel like I have some distance. This is wild. 12 noon. And we're climbing. We've been climbing for almost 4 hours. And we're not almost there yet. We're not almost there yet.
We are on the rock scramble. The final ascent to Vesper Peak. And the moon, you can barely see it in the camera now, is right over the top. It has served as a sort of a compass all morning. It's 12:12. So it's taken us about 4 hours so far.
The origin of the name Vesper Peak is not clear. There are some different explanations that claim to describe how this beautiful peak in the North Cascades got her name. One source claims that she was named after Vesper Fauntleroy, who was the younger sister of Eleanor Fauntleroy, the same person for whom Mount Eleanor was named. I found this really interesting because on our first hiking adventure video, we explored Mount Eleanor and we explored in depth the history of that name. So I found the connection between the two really interesting. And if this be true, both mountains, one in the Olympics and one in the North Cascades, these were named by George Davidson, who is known to have named a lot of the peaks in this area at the time. He was a geographer and a scientist that explored the area, and as part of his survey work in the Pacific Northwest during the late 1800s, he named the peaks that he was exploring. And remember from our other video, he was married to Eleanor, for whom Mount Eleanor is named. So, interesting history there. There's another theory about the name that reports it was likely named by Albert Hell Sylvester. He was an explorer and surveyor and that worked in this area in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. In this explanation, the name Vesper is in reference to the evening star Venus that's often seen during the twilight hours, and this is a time when Vesper provides some amazing sunset views. There is not a lot that I could find about the Native American Indian name of this peak. However, the presence and significance is clear, and this quote comes from the North Cascades Institute. At least 10,000 years ago, indigenous Northwest peoples began to visit the valley and the surrounding mountains. They adapted to a landscape that was newly uncovered from the melting of massive glaciers extending across Northwest Washington, including Puget Sound and Seattle. If we could see the ancestral Skagit River Valley that these early people saw, we might not recognize it, considering how different were the plant and animal communities and the overall ecology. The people, then and now, the river, the land, and all its inhabitants are linked by time and history to this place, which flexes to the dictates of climate, environment, and evolution. Because of this, our best understanding of the present is achieved by knowing something about the past. So we continue to explore this, and interestingly, on the National Park History website, and we'll put links to both of these sources below, there are details and even maps that show how far some of the tribal lands covered and extended and included the North Cascades before those lands were relinquished through treaties and agreements with the U.S. government in the mid 1800s as Washington was being settled.
Here we are, the summit of Vesper Peak. We did it!
Whoa. Wow. Whoa. I can't tell in this picture, but my knees are shaking. Wow. We made it to the top of Vesper Peak. Woo. Another massive and beautiful lake on this side.
Vesper Peak has some fascinating history and has made the news a few times over the decades because of people who have lost their life while hiking or climbing the peak. And the most prolific event associated with Vesper is the disappearance of hiker Samantha Sayers. In August 2018, Sayers, who was considered an experienced hiker, had a lot of history hiking and hiking difficult trails and doing hikes on her own. She left her place in Seattle in the morning for a hike on Vesper Peak. She and her boyfriend texted early that morning. She signed in at the trailhead. Other hikers reported that they saw her along the way on the trail, or somebody who matched her description, and somebody reported that they saw her at the peak. And then she vanished. She never came home. She did not call or text her boyfriend on the check-in time that they agreed on, and he went that very evening to start to look for her to the trailhead at Vesper Peak. And that is where he found her car, but she was nowhere to be found. And that was the beginning of one of the largest search and rescue efforts in Washington state history. Samantha Sayers was only 28 years old at the time she disappeared, and despite some extensive efforts from volunteers, from professionals, no real trace other than that sign in, her car at the trailhead, and some of the reports from eyewitnesses. No real trace of her was ever found. The case remains unsolved today. Many reports suggest that she was likely a victim of a fall on the mountain or another accident, and her body cannot be found because many areas around Vesper are nearly impossible to access and explore. Others believe that she might still be alive. If you look online, you'll not only see a lot about the history of the search to find her, but current efforts to look for her. And some reports are very recent, within the last few months, and suggest that she was abducted on the mountain and may still be alive.
He's a mountain climbing caterpillar. Look at him go. Just look at him go. He's on a mission. I wasn't expecting a lake. He's stoned. What a sweet picture. This is the part where we just go down however we can. And we may be in the shadow. Hopefully. Panicked at it. Did you see your life flash before your eyes? We just witnessed a boulder fall. That was two big boulders. Sounds like as we're crossing a boulder field. Sounds like thunder, but meaner.
It is. That's a good way to describe it. It's meaner than thunder.
All right, I'm taking this away. Not as hard. Oh, I'm on a 5. Like a 4.9 because it's very, very hot. But there is a lake. The views are astronomical. It's fun, diverse. The views are 360. It's exciting. It's very high up here.
And the bouldering, scrambling at the top.
The bouldering is a lot of fun. We're coming out of Vesper Peak. We're so close to the car. The hike ended up being somewhere around 9 miles. I'll have to check when I get home. Elevation of a little over 4,000 feet. something like 10 hours to complete. We did spend a lot of time resting. I jumped in the lake. Oh, excuse me. Oh, fuck. I'm dead.
This is our recap of Vesper Peak.
It was one of my favorite hikes of all time.
It was, for me, it was probably the most challenging trail that I have ever completed. So I was really proud of making it.
Definitely an intense challenge, but the reward was even greater. It was a full body engagement because you need to look at where you're stepping and plan 2 to 5 steps ahead, because the whole trail is uneven and most of it is a rock scramble, class 3 scramble.
Even through the forest, it's the rocks and the roots. So, and I learned that really well the first time we tried to hike Vesper Peak earlier in the summer, because I wasn't paying attention, was enjoying, and sprained my ankle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the lessons that I learned from Vesper Peak.
Yes, if you plan on doing this hike, I would say bring a lot of sunscreen because most of it is exposed to the sun. You'll be on the rock, on the south side of the rock, exposed to the sun, and also bring lots of water.
Yeah, and the day we went, it was late in the summer, early fall, but it was unusually hot. It was in the 80s, so we definitely used the water and the sunscreen.
When we got to the lake and I jumped in, I would say it's the coldest lake also that I've experienced, and I had the sensation that the lake was pulling me in. And I don't know if it's just something like an illusion or if it was real, but that seemed a little dangerous in my mind. I was like, I need to get out of here quick.
That is, you spent the least amount of time in the water there. Mm-hmm. Of the lakes that you swam in this summer. That was, you were in and out of there once. And
yeah.
That was it.
It was ultimately refreshing. I was in a funky mood. I was dehydrated and hungry and hot and sun-kissed. And then when I jumped in the lake and came out, it was like, refresh, reset.
So I would say that about Vesper Peak. There are some things to explore along the way, like the trail, the rock slides are cool. So I would say give yourself time to enjoy that hike. Mm-hmm. There's some cool things, and give yourself time to enjoy the views from the top.
Yeah,
they're pretty amazing. The other thing I learned is just take your time on that trail. There was one time when we got off trail and we were on a rock slide area, and it's just because we didn't take our time and look for the trail markers. So we had a scary moment there, but the trail markers are there. You just have to take your time to find them.
And the trail markers are stacks of rocks that other people have placed.
Yeah, through the rock fields.
If you have hiking poles, bring those. Have good boots with traction, because you'll be hiking on smooth rock. And I could see that being very dangerous, especially if it's wet.
Yes. And we went the first time, I believe, near the end of June. And we came back a few months later when the snow was gone and we could make it to the top. So there's not a huge window to hike Vesper Peak without dealing with the snow. So I would say keep that in mind also. Late summer seems to be the time to hit Vesper Peak.
I also wonder if you can snowshoe your way up. I was terrified on this normal hike to Vesper Peak, but then I could see it being way more terrifying with snow all around me.
Definitely, especially the last part of Vesper Peak. If that rocky area were covered in snow, that would be a huge slide.
Yeah, you'd be dead. Okay.
Well, it would be real fun. So definitely check out Vesper Peak.
Yep.
And I would highly recommend it.
So, and I was kind of surprised that it was more popular. The first time we went, there were only a couple other people there. And the second time we went was when the snow was clear and the trail was pretty busy.
Yes, we saw trail runners. That was cool.
So, fun trail.
Yeah.
Will not be disappointed.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Happy hiking.